It's the recap for Monday, July 29th, 2024. I'm Daniel Montoya Jr. for General Effect Media. What a wild and fun and exciting and fascinating and entertaining 3 days of drum corps. This past weekend, we had tons of shows all over the Dirty South, finishing up the Swamp Tour. And boy, did we have some fun rankings and scores and history-making setting events. So let's dive in. First off, we're going to talk about Murfreesboro at the Masters of the Summer Games. We had 8 drum corps there, and my predictions were just a little bit off. And by just a little bit, I mean, I got 50% of the rankings wrong. Now, I did accurately predict how some of these groups were going to do the next day, but I didn't anticipate it happening too early. And I don't want to make excuses, but I did have a certain drum corps over another in my notes. It was a game time change, and I probably should have just gone with my gut, because we had the Bluecoats in first, Boston in second, Blue Devils in third, Phantom in fourth, Carolina Crown in fifth, Mandarins in sixth, the Cavaliers in seventh, and Music City in eighth. Now, I did predict that Blue Devils were going to be over Boston. That is the situation where I had Boston written down, but when I delivered it to the camera, I ended up going Blue Devils, and that was obvious mistake. And I did think that Crown was going to beat Phantom, but I said it was going to happen on Saturday, and it happened one event earlier. So you don't get credit for moral victories. I batted 50% on that day. Now, as we look at the caption breakdown, you can start to see where some of the drum corps are solidifying how they are placing overall. If we look at the Bluecoats, they're pretty much first all the way. They were second in guard behind the Boston Crusaders, and they were second in percussion, also behind the Boston Crusaders. This is an improvement because they were placing below the Blue Devils and below Carolina Crown in these captions. Crown not at this show. Boston was pretty consistent in their scoring. They were third, however, in visual performance and visual analysis. Fourth in music analysis being their weakest caption. The Blue Devils pretty consistent, second and third all around. Phantom Regiment fourth and fifth all around. Carolina Crown fifth and fourth with a third in music analysis, a sixth in percussion with a fourth overall music rank. Sixth in percussion, probably one of the deciding factors in how Carolina Crown placed behind Phantom Regiment for the first time this season. The Mandarins consistently sixth all across the board, except for seventh in percussion. Cavaliers seventh across the board with fifth in percussion. And then Music City eighth place all the way through. So that was a fun and exciting time, especially if you were following along the scores and you saw, wait a minute, Boston Crusaders were announced before Blue Devils, but that wasn't the biggest surprise, I think, or the biggest excitement. It was Carolina Crown being announced before Phantom, which meant that Phantom scored and placed higher than Carolina Crown. Crazy times, crazy times. If we move on to the next day, to the DCI Southeastern Championship, where Bluecoats were in first, Boston was in second, Blue Devils were in third, Phantom Regiment once again besting Crown fourth, Carolina Crown in fifth, Vanguard sixth, Mandarin seventh, Blue Stars in eighth, Colts in ninth, Crossman in 10th, Spirit of Atlanta in 11th, the Academy in 12th, and Genesis in 13th. Now, I did better on this. I once again should have stuck to my gut because I wrote down Boston over Blue Devils, but I did not make that prediction. That was the only thing I got wrong. I called Phantom Regiment over Crown. I should have stuck to my gut and trusted my instincts and said Boston over Blue Devils. I called it earlier. It didn't happen. I think that spooked me. I should have trusted the boy. Now, if we're looking at the caption rankings, now we have Boston, Bluecoats, and Blue Devils together. Bluecoats first pretty much all the way through, except Color Guard back to fourth place. Percussion dropped to third place. Boston Crusaders did have a fourth place in GE1, but they were second and first all the way through consistently, except for brass where they were in third. Blue Devils second, thirds all the way through. They were first in brass. That has to make that gentle person who was commenting about how I said maybe Phantom beats Blue Devils in brass has to be happy about that. So that was their only first place ranking on that night. I had heard that Blue Devils were really good in Atlanta. I did not catch that show. Phantom Regiment, who were in fifth place, had a fifth place in GE1, but they were fourth place and fifth place pretty consistently. Carolina Crown, third place in that GE1, but they were fifth, sixth in visual, sixth in percussion. So we're starting to see how the captions are showing why Phantom Regiment's placing over Crown at the end of the day when the scores. Now, we're not talking humongous gaps. In fact, Carolina Crown was a 91.575, Carolina Crown 91.65. So that's pretty close. If we go back a night, which I should have talked about, and we go to Murfreesboro, Phantom Regiment 90.65, Carolina Crown 90.5. So yes, very tight. Doesn't mean it's over. I was worried that it was one and done on Friday, and then it happened again on Saturday. Is this a harbinger of things to come? Who knows? Who knows? But it's happened twice in a row. It's a pretty big deal. Santa Clara Vanguard in 6th. Their highest caption, Visual Performance, 4th. Their lowest caption, 8th in Color Guard. Mandarins in 7th place, their highest caption, 6 pretty much across the board. Their lowest, 9th in Percussion, 8th in Visual Performance. Blue Stars in 8th, pretty consistently 7, 8, 9 all the way through. Colts in 9th, consistently 9th in most of their captions, 8th. They are 7th in Visual Performance, which puts them over Mandarins. And the Blue Stars, they were 7th in Percussion, which puts them over Mandarin and Blue Stars. And then the Crossmen in 10th, pretty consistently 10th and 11th all the way through. There were other placements in there, but for the purposes of time, that's all we're going to go into. So, like I mentioned, I only got one grouping wrong on that one. That was the best I did on Saturday. The worst I did was on Friday, and then we get to Sunday for NightBEAT. I think that's the way it's pronounced. NightBEAT. We had Bluecoats, then the Blue Devils, then Carolina Crown, 3rd place, no Phantom Regiment there. Mandarins in 4th, Troopers in 5th, Cavaliers in 6th. I had that backwards. I guessed that the Cavaliers would still beat the Troopers. That did not happen. Madison in 7th, Blue Knights in 8th, Pacific Crest in 9th, Music City in 10th, Seattle in 11th, and Jersey Surf in 12th. I predicted Jersey over Seattle. That did not happen. So this was the second of the best 3 nights. My best night for predictions was Saturday. Second was Sunday at NightBEAT. And then Thursday I batted 50-50, which was not good. Now, if we go into caption breakdowns for NightBEAT, we can see that Bluecoats, first place rankings all the way through. This was a convincing win, a 1.3 victory over the Blue Devils, who were in 2nd, who were pretty consistently 2nd all the way through, with the exception of a 3rd in GE2. Carolina Crown, consistently 2nd and 3rd all the way through. Their captions, their lowest, 5th place in Percussion, their highest, GE2 in 2nd. Mandarins, 4th place all the way through, with the exception of Percussion, 6th place. Troopers, 5th, 6th, 5th. Their lowest caption, Color Guard, 9th. Their highest caption, Percussion, 3rd place. Puts them over the Cavaliers and put them over Carolina Crown. It's amazing, which is probably the reason why they beat the Cavaliers with a score of 86.375 to 86.000. Almost 4 points. We go from very comparable to minor differences to what? That's right. Cavaliers 6-6, 5-7, 6-5, 6-5, 5-6, 6-4. Their highest caption 4th in Percussion. Their lowest caption 7th in GE2, but it was a double panel. So Madison Scouts consistently across the board in 7th place. They finished 7th. Once again, Percussion, their lowest caption in 10th. Visual Analysis in 9th. That is keeping it a little closer than they would like to with the Knights of Blue. It was an 83.5 for the Scouts, 82.6 for the Blue Knights, so less than a point away. Still a big deal. They were consistently 9th, 8th across the board. Their highest caption, 7th in Visual Analysis, 7th in Music. Lowest caption was General Effect 1 and General Effect 2. Double caption, so it kind of evened it out. Pacific Crest was in 9th. Pretty consistent across the board, 8th Knights, some 7s. Their highest caption, 6th in Color Guard. They also had a 7th in Percussion, 9th across the board in 4 of the 6 GE scores, Brass and Music Analysis. And then in 10th place, Music City, pretty consistent across the board, 10th place with a 9th in Percussion. Now, the big story of NightBEAT was the Troopers. Now, the Troopers beat the Cavaliers for the first time since 1974. Finals in Ithaca, New York. So the Troopers finished 5th, the Cavaliers finished 6th, and it was almost by 0.4, which is a big deal, when we talk about the value of the 10th. So you can look at this, and they are pretty close to each other already in the rankings if you put the other groups into there. So there is still room for other drum corps to fit between Troopers and Cavaliers. So it's not like the Cavaliers are just right there next to Troopers, or the Troopers are just right there in Cavaliers. There's space for other drum corps to get to. So knowing that, let us talk about rankings. Now, again, I have mentioned that rankings don't matter because we could use anything we want to figure out the rankings. We can mess with the data to get what we want. We can go to DCI. We can go to bandscores.net. I choose to use the Core Clash app, and it takes the latest ranking, the highest ranking, I guess it's the latest ranking, and it puts it in there. So even though Phantom Regiment beat Crown 2 nights in a row, because Carolina Crown had a show on Sunday, They have a higher score, so they are ranked higher than Phantom Regiment. So right now, we've got the Blue Coats, Boston, Blue Devils, Carolina Crown, Phantom Regiment, and Santa Clara as your top 6. Understanding, again, that Phantom has beat Crown the last 2 head-to-heads. Mandarins in 7th, Blue Stars in 8th. 9th is Troopers. 10th is the Cavaliers, 11th is Colts, and sitting in 12th position right now, the Madison Scouts. If we go to the next 3, we have the Blue Knights, Pacific Crest, and Crossmen in that 13, 14, 15 slot. Now, 12th spot is basically up for grabs right now. There is an island of 10, 11. Some could say maybe 9, 10, 11, but you look at the scores and it's pretty tight. Now, Madison is only 0.9 above Blue Knights in that 12 to 13 slot. Blue Knights are 0.2 above Pacific Crest, and then Pacific Crest is about 0.6 above Crossman. So right now it looks like there is a battle for 13th place, and Madison are on an island all their own. It's a 0.9 island, but it's still an island. I can't say that other drum corps were on an island when they were only about a point, and not say the same thing right now. So right now there's a battle for 13th. But that's cool and that's good because we get to Allentown. Allentown is a 2-day regional that takes place at J. Bernie Crum Stadium in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And it's split. The way they do it, my understanding, is like Fridays 1, Saturdays 2, Fridays 3, Saturdays 4. Like they do all that kind of stuff. So the rankings, or the performance day rather, has already been set. So based off of this past weekend's scores, that's how the performance order is set. So while you would have liked to have seen a better balance of corps in certain islands perform on Friday and Saturday, it's heavier on some days than it is on the other because the performance order was decided earlier so that they can plan their schedule and all that stuff. So if we look at Allentown Day 1, right now we have Genesis, the Cavaliers, Blue Knights, Blue Devils, Blue Coats, Colts, Pacific Crest, Madison Scouts, the Academy, and Music City performing on Friday. This is the performance order. It's not a real performance order. This is the way it's listed on the DCI website. Performance order might be dropping today before this video drops. And what's interesting about this is we can look at the islands of competition that's happening. So we have the Cavaliers performing and we have the Colts. They are very close to each other. So that's going to be a good performance competition for those two. Blue Knights, Pacific Crest, and Madison Scouts. Those 3 on Friday. That's going to be great because those 3 are the next 12, 13, 14. All we're missing is the Crossmen, who are on the next night, unfortunately. So I guess it's cool that we had 3 going next to each other and 1. It would be better if it was 2 and 2. It'd be a lot better if it was 4 and 0, but that's just not the way it's going to work. Blue Devils and Blue Coats in their own islands of sorts, competing for that top spot right now, though Blue Coats have it firmly in hand as of today, or as of yet. I still think they're going undefeated, but this is going to be good. We get to see Blue Devils and Blue Coats, Colts and Cavaliers, Pacific Crest, Madison Scouts, and Blue Knights. This is really going to help us lead into the final week before we get to preliminaries, semifinals, and finals for 12 groups. Allentown Day 2 sees the Blue Stars, Phantom Regiment, Troopers, Boston Crusaders, Carolina Crown, Mandarins, Crossman, Spirit of Atlanta, Jersey Surf, Seattle Cascades, and the Santa Clara Vanguard. So if we're looking for the key matchups that are going to decide the order and how things go, Blue Stars and Troopers are going to be there. That's great. Phantom Regiment and Crown. Will Phantom pull the hat trick? We will see. Boston, kind of on their own. They're really on their own. Mandarins will see Santa Clara Vanguard, and then the Crossman and Spirit of Atlanta. So we have a battle for that 13th slot right now. It's coming between Crossman and Spirit of Atlanta are going to fight, and then the previous night with Blue Knights, Madison, and Pacific Crest fighting for that 12th spot. Will we get a clearer picture of how we're getting into prelims? Possibly, because it's over 2 nights. Same judging panel. Ideally, it's like, this. But here's the thing. It could rain on one or both nights. It could be sunny on one or both nights. It could be some mixture. There could be rain in the morning, and there could be all kinds of crazy factors that go into competition dynamics that could make some scores higher, make some scores lower. You're trying to go off of a rubric. You're trying to remember what happened the night before. You're trying to save some room for the next day. There's a whole lot of mental math and gymnastics that have to take place for the judges, which doesn't make this the most scientific way of figuring out preliminary rankings and head-to-heads. It's every bit as convoluted and, not ideal as calling NightBEAT and calling the DCI Southeastern Championship the same championship and figuring out things that way. Honestly, San Antonio's the best way to do it, only happens once, and then it happens at preliminary. So it happens 2 times a year. Not ideal, but we do what we can. We get to play Fantasy Drum Corps, and we get some scores, we get some rankings, we get to figure out how this goes into finals week, and gets to figure out where groups are going to play, because as we talked about last week, performance order is going to be a big deal if you're trying to get higher on that group. Maybe if you're Carolina Crown trying to get up on Phantom Regiment, if you're a Commander trying to get up on Vanguard, Troopers, Cavaliers, etc., or if you're trying to jump from 15th to 12th. If you're Pacific Crest, Crossman, Spirit of Atlanta, and you're really trying to get into the battle for 12th, if Madison and Blue Knights are playing later and you're playing way higher up there, it makes the hill steeper to climb. Not saying it can't be done, but we're really jockeying for performance order as we get into a very competitive finals week in Indianapolis, Indiana. And there we have it, a quick recap of this weekend's events and a look ahead to Allentown. Yes, there will be more events taking place this week, but really wanted to focus on the bigger shows where the majority of cores were coming together, which had a bigger and more important impact on how they perform next week at DCI Finals. That's right, we are almost at the end. It's basically the last little loop-de-loop, last little dip before we kind of just slow on down and get into the end and have to exit the roller coaster. So we'll be back on Wednesday, which is traditionally banquet day, rehearsal day, relax day, etc. So we'll have a preview and a recap. So we'll be recapping Allentown and previewing preliminaries for the next day. And depending on how things go, we may or may not release a video every day, maybe a small reaction recap video of what happened before, where the cut was made. Was it interesting? Was it different? Was it all chalk? We'll probably do a little something on that every day, probably just for the fans. And now it's time to pay the bills. As always, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. If you like the kind of content we're creating, why don't you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so you know when we release our latest video. Sometimes it'll be once a week. Sometimes it may be 2 or 3, depending on the news. Marching arts is not a seasonal thing. It takes place all season long. Sometimes it's preseason, sometimes it's postseason, sometimes there's multiple seasons going on. So as always, click on all that stuff and let us know you like the video. If you want to engage in conversation, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Keep it a safe and fun space for those who maybe like different groups than you do. Let's not call out people or, oh, they're too old or they're too young or your group's not good. Let's keep it a safe and inviting place, a safe and inviting place for those of us who like and enjoy drum corps. And we can continue this community of discussion that we have going on. Share the video. Let us know if you like what we're doing or go like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. All engagement is good engagement. If you want more nerdy content, if you'd like to read your content rather than watch your content, please go to our General Effect Media Substack. That's how we started out. We have some really nerdy stuff, some great articles, so be sure to subscribe to that. You'll also get notified when the latest podcast drops, so that's always great. And if you're more into the visual stuff, you want to see some photos and videos and stories and all that stuff, we do have an Instagram that your boy does not run. I can barely run my own personal social media page, so we have the younger, cooler content creators run the Instagram. Go check that out, give it a like, give it a follow, whatever, share all that stuff, because that's a year-round stuff and you'll see plenty of videos and cooler stuff. And if you're tired of me, I can guarantee you I'm not going to be on that Instagram. Very little of me is on that Instagram. And in case you haven't noticed yet, we have a store. We have launched the General Effect Media Store. We have enough subscribers and enough view hours to allow us to connect to a store. So you can go to the General Effect Media Store and you can buy your very own GEM logo t-shirt in various colors and obviously various sizes. And if you happen to remember the General Effect, the brand that was launched a few years ago pre-pandemic and was slowly rising and doing well until a pandemic wiped out a brand that was reliant on live events, but then live events didn't kind of happen and all this other stuff, you can find some of our most favorite, most of our most sold, most popular merchandise from GE, the brand, on the GEM store. So go check that all out. Right now it's just t-shirts because here in Texas it's 90-something degrees. It's been a very blessed and mild summer so far, but you will start to see longer sleeve stuff for those of you who have that climate, hoodies, hats. We're going to branch out into all kinds of things, so please go check out the General Effect Media shop. All of the money we come in, minus administrative fees and all that stuff, comes back into the company to pay our content creators, to pay for equipment, to pay for travel, all that stuff. No one's making money. This isn't a job. This is a labor of love. So if you feel like purchasing something and contributing to the group, great. If you're like, I just want to donate some money, guess what? you can do that too. We are connected with Ko-fi, Ko-Fi, where you can give a donation to General Effect Media. Again, minus administrative costs, all that goes to our content creators so that they can get paid for writing nerdy articles about Coleman water jugs, etc. So enough of the commercials. Hopefully that paid some bills. Hopefully you'll get some nice t-shirts for yourself. Love to see them around at marching events all over the country, maybe even the world, who knows. But all that being said, thanks for checking into this latest episode of The Recap. We'll be back again Wednesday next week to recap how Allentown went and to preview DCI Championship Finals Week. We'll catch you next time.